you want me to kick off then?
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yes,
Nigel.
please, Nigel.
Cheers. I'm Nigel Bryson and I'm the Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner. And Joy's away at the moment. She's on vacation, so I've stood in for her. So I hope that's not too much of a disappointment for you. But before I give my update about what's happening in the office, particularly in relation to Darlington, we've invited Lucy Hatch, who is our Antisocial Behaviour Project and Strategy Officer, to talk about a Trailblazer pilot and work particularly on antisocial behaviour that we've received government funding for. And this is from the Home Office, and it's to have a pilot so that urgent action, please note that, urgent action can be taken in tackling antisocial behaviour and trying to punish those who are caught. So I think without any further to do, if I could ask Lucy if she can share her presentation. And Lucy's been asked to give a presentation on the Trailblazer initiative.
Hi everyone. I think most of you recognise me as the number 40 Lucy in Darlington, but just to confuse you a little bit, I've changed roles within the PCC office and now I'm coordinating the Trailblazer pilot, and that's why I've been invited along today. I am still heavily involved in number 40 though. Now we'll be back in there this weekend, so I'm keeping that on as a volunteer, but my day job at the minute is the Trailblazer. So I'll share a presentation and let you know where we are at the minute. Can you see that now? Yep, brilliant.
Yep.
Right. So the ASB Action Plan, Durham is one of 10 police forces that's been chose to pilot the ASB hotspot approaches. So the Trailblazer is split into two. We've got the ASB hotspots, which I'm really enjoying and it's going really well. And then we've got the immediate justice side, which I'll go into a little bit more detail, which has had its challenges. So the purpose of the Hotspot Fund is to increase police and uniform presence to reduce antisocial behaviour, targeting these hotspot areas. And Joy's vision is to make the communities of Durham and Darlington safer, stronger and more resilient to crime, drugs and antisocial behaviour. Now, these are the hotspot areas. These have been chosen by a mixture of police data, local authority and community intelligence. Please don't feel disappointed if the area you cover is not in there. You are still entitled. If you've got any initiatives you can think of to tackle antisocial behaviour, you're still welcome to put a proposal in via our normal commission and board route. So please don't feel too disheartened if you're not in there. It is a pilot and we're constantly looking at what's working and we can revisit the hotspot areas in the future. So this is what we've got currently going on at the minute. I'll try and focus on Darlington. So we've got Durham Constabulary. They don't like it when we say extra officers because we don't have any extra officers at the minute. We've got officers on overtime on top of their day job, of volunteering to do the overtime and go out and do extra patrols in all of the 34 hotspot areas across Durham and Darlington. We've recently just employed an analyst who's in post just to support us with the Trailblazer, specifically targeting where we can put our resources out. We've got the fire service. They are going out daily between 3 and 8 doing extra patrols and engaging the public. And then Darlington Borough Council have recruited environmental crime officers to work across the hotspot areas and an ASB prevention officer who's already in post to focus on them hotspot wards. We've got maps, so we're looking at Darlington maps. Darlington are looking at putting proposals within their multi-agency problem-solving groups for how they want to tackle antisocial behaviour. We're working closely with housing associations and they're putting together proposals of how they think they can tackle antisocial behaviour. We're working together with voluntary sectors, town and parishes. I'm going out to meet as many as possible and just let them know what funding we've got available. I'll go through that soon. So there is some funding you can dip into if you're interested. We've got our police cadets and they started in Darlington. So this is Darlington Police Cadets and they've done their first night and they did 350 leaflets in their first night. Very keen, really enjoyed it. They put on their uniform. Because they are only young people, we can't class them as an extra patrol, but what they're doing is they're going out while the partners are out, and they're speaking to members of the public, letting them know why the patrols are happening, how to report antisocial behaviour, and they're putting our Don't Suffer in Silence leaflets through the doors in a letterbox drop. I'm just going to skip to a summary of the first quarter. So in the first quarter, this is across Durham and Darlington. So we've had 5,330 hours and 13 minutes of additional patrols from all partners. And from that, we've had an extra 27 arrests, 36 stop and searches, 30 informal warnings. Then we've had community protection warnings, notices, dispersals, enforcement actions, and a few fixed penalty notices. And then this is where we are in October so far. So 1,323 hours and 23 minutes of additional patrols from partners. And this is what we've got coming next. So we've got the tri-responders. So these are 8 PCSOs who we're recruiting for, and they're going to be specifically trained to work alongside fire service and local authority to get out and engage with the community in the hotspot areas. We have got our peer mentors who are going to join the patrols, and they're going to get out there and see if they can do some kind of immediate mediation on the street and see whether they can tackle any antisocial behaviour there and then on the street. And Darlington Borough Council are recruiting a community safety coordinator, and they're going to be linked to supporting fly tipping, vandalism and other antisocial behaviour, focusing just on them Darlington hotspots. And this is the funding opportunity. So like I said before, please don't worry if you're not in one of these areas, you still can come through the commissioning board, but this is for people who are in these hotspot areas. And the main criteria is it a visible activity? Will it reduce antisocial behaviour? And is it in one of them hotspot areas? So the objectives are to increase police and uniform presence to reduce antisocial behaviour, and building a long and lasting local community confidence. So if you can hit that criteria, you can get a proposal in and you're entitled to that funding. So some of the things we've had come through is some detached youth workers. So the youth workers are going to be visible in the hotspot areas, and they're going to signpost to a youth centre where we've got trainee youth workers who are delivering sessions to the younger people. One of them proposals that come through was the cadets, so they're out visible and posting them leaflet drops. So if you can think of anything in that area, please let me know and get a proposal in. And there's my details there, but I will share this PowerPoint after if you want to have a look through in a bit more detail. And then that brings us on to the immediate justice side, which we are facing quite a few challenges with this one. If anybody asked me a year ago what my biggest challenge was, I might have said opening a volunteer safety hub without any volunteers. But now looking back, that seems quite easy compared to the challenges we faced on this immediate justice. So the aim of immediate justice originally was for offenders within 48 hours of committing an ASB offence to be wearing this high-vis jack and being out in the community and paying back. That's been quite difficult. We have tried to push back on that 48 hours, but the Home Office is still sticking with the 48 hours where possible. So now they're saying as long as we've got the ambition to get that reparation done within the 48 hours, they understand it will take a little bit longer. For the youth side, we've pushed back and they've agreed by the time we speak to parents, look at any safeguarding, that 48 hours is a little bit difficult. We've pushed back on that high-vis jacket. For the adults, they're still saying stick with it. For the young people, have agreed that we can't make the young people wear these high-vis jackets. So at the minute, we've got 2 static sites, one in the Deans in Darlington and one up in North Consett Stanley, and they are ready with probation as soon as we start getting referrals to get the offender over there to do some unpaid work. And this is where we've got some funding opportunities. As soon as we start getting our number of referrals, we're going to have lots of people needing to do some projects. So this is where if you've got anything you want doing that you think you could dip into some funding for a project, please let me know. So I'll start with the youth side because that's going really well. But in Durham and Darlington, and especially Darlington, they've already got a well-established ASB pathway that works. So what immediate justice is, it's enhancing this. So it's working really well. So the young people need to be between age 12 and 18. Every time I deliver this presentation, people ask why we can't go younger. We have raised that with the Home Office, but at the minute they're saying age 12 plus. So we've pushed back on that 48 hours and we pushed back on the high-vis vest. For the young people, the interventions will either be one-to-one or in a group work, depending on the individual needs of that young person. So the youth side's going really well. The adults, a little bit more difficult. So in the beginning, and this was only until last Friday, Durham Constabulary didn't really want to support with the immediate justice side. I'm not sure if anyone's aware of Checkpoint. So Durham Constabulary have got the checkpoint service, which isn't immediate. It's a 4-month programme, and what that does is addresses behaviour and it addresses reasons for offending, and then the offender will do their kind of restorative work. That works really well. It's used as best evidence across the country, so I can understand why Durham Constabulary are saying we've got a system that works, we don't want to change it. Conversations have gone on over the last week where the police are now looking at a way that we can make this work. So we should start seeing some police referrals through a community resolution, which is outcome 8 in the police. That's where we're going to focus. We thought we would have got lots of referrals from all the partners doing the hotspot patrols, but that hasn't seemed to happen. Housing providers, I've spoke to several housing providers, and they've said if they get a complaint about antisocial behaviour, nothing that they do to investigate is immediate, and it could possibly be 12 months before they look at putting an action in place, which would be out of the pilot. So we're struggling to see how we can work with housing. Local authority, we've gone round and round in circles with different ideas, but I think we're starting to progress. So we're looking at, one of the ideas we had recently is untidy yards. Would there be any possibility if we could reduce the fine for untidy yards if somebody got involved with immediate justice? And these are ideas that we're talking about. So both Durham and Darlington local authorities are putting their heads together, and they're going to give proposals to us to see how they could work. So fingers crossed. Since July, it's been very slow. We've gone round and round in circles, and we've had no referrals for adults, but I finally feel that we are getting somewhere. So that's where we are with the referrals at the minute. But the youth side, in Darlington in the first quarter, we had 12 referrals from the ASB panel, 9 of them in August, and although they didn't get involved with the immediate justice, they did do some group intervention work. So on paper that goes back to the Home Office, it did look like nobody engaged because they didn't do that immediate justice part. But what they did do is do some intervention around their behaviour and reoffending. We had 4 further referrals in September, and 3 of them did agree to do the immediate justice. And I've just found out from Leanne Hopper over in Darlington that 2 of them have actually finished it. And we're still working on the November data, but it looks like referrals are coming through. So in October, 3 new referrals, and 2 of them have already completed it. Durham are a little bit slower than Darlington at the minute, and their pathway's just opened, and they've had 8 referrals, but I'm just waiting on information to see if any of them have engaged. What have we got coming next? So we've got lots of bulbs. I've just heard they've just arrived from Amsterdam today, and they're getting sent over to Darlington, and they are going to be planted in all of the hotspot areas. Ideally, these would have been planted by our immediate justice referrals, but because we're low on numbers, we are using anybody who wants to get involved and come and plant some bulbs. I think we've got enough people, but if anybody is interested and wants to help getting them done in Darlington, please let me know, and I can send you over to Pippa, who's coordinating. So next, we are working closer with the force. Sounds positive so far, so we could get immediate justice as an option for the checkpoint dart service. And then that's the opportunities alongside the local authority that we've been talking about. And that funding opportunities is if you've got any of them projects that once we start getting these referrals in, which I'm confident it's going to start happening, then we can start getting some of these projects off the ground if you've got any ideas. And any questions before I hand you back over to Nigel.
I think it's fair to say that this initiative is very much welcome, and I think that the work that's been done both in Darlington, County Durham, and Joy's emphasis means that there's some great opportunities with this. So I've seen some hands go up, and I'm not sure how the technology works, but there is I think first of all, Councillor Allen, you had your hand up first, I think.
I think it was Neil Johnson.
I was just going to say no. I was last. I was fiddling trying to find my button.
All right. Now I see what the 3's for. Neil.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm just interested in relation. I should declare I work for the probation service, and I'm just interested in the 48 hours turnaround, which I'm guessing is aimed presumably at getting people seen and onto community service. Is that correct?
It is, yeah. And across the country, nobody's managing to achieve that 48 hours.
Well, it's completely at odds with our targets, because our targets are within 7 days of the court date. And it's logistically impossible. Because in Darlington anyway, community service it works on a weekend, Friday and Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
So if someone, for instance, is sentenced on a Monday, they're not going to hoping that they're seen by a very stretched probation and community service staff that week. It's going to be at least a week before they go onto any form of community service, and they have to be risk assessed and everything prior to that. So that is a completely logistically impossible task. And unfortunately, it sounds as though the Home Office, as usual, have not spoken to the Ministry of Justice.
Yeah, we did feed that back, and I did get members of probation to come and meet with the Home Office when they came to Darlington, when they came over to Durham, and then we fed that back. So then the goalpost changed slightly, so that would be 48 hours from referral, but even then was really difficult. So they've agreed now, as long as you've got that ambition to do it as quick as you possibly can, is how we're taking it.
I do have every cloud has a silver lining, however. I've just spoken this week to Steve Harker, the leader of Darlington Council. We are looking for opportunities to bring more people, to find opportunities to provide community service placements. And it looks like we're going to be able to offer some opportunities across the borough. So hopefully, if we can increase our opportunities for community service people, we can speed things up. So if we can get that into place, we might be able to offer a faster turnaround. So I didn't want to just grumble and sort of point out a fault. We are trying to rectify that in Darlington as well, and we are looking at a new initiative. So that may speed things up. So negative and a positive, I guess.
Yeah. I think we just need to remember this is a pilot, and all these faults that we pick up, we just need to take them on board and feed it back.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a laudable ambition, and I think it's a really good initiative. I'm not knocking the initiative. I just think that sometimes. And I'm not knocking you guys at all. It's just sometimes the people who dream these schemes up at the Home Office, they pin down these sort of very unrealistic. It's typical of the Home Office to sort of just ping down something that somebody's thought of in Whitehall. Oh, well, 48 hours is plenty of time. It's logistically impossible, and it can be sort of demoralizing, because that then gets fed back down to us, and it becomes another target that we can't meet, to be honest. So, but we are looking to sort of, if we can spread the community service opportunities across more sites in Darlington other than the Deans, then that will obviously provide more opportunities. So I'm hoping we can work hand in hand with you on that.
Brilliant.
Okay,
thanks.
Councillor Snedker, thank you for that, Neil.
Yeah, thank you, Nigel. A couple of sort of fairly quick questions just for clarification. You mentioned CSR officers. I'm just wondering what the difference is between those and PCSOs. What is there a difference in their contract, in their pay, in their powers, etc.?
I'm not sure on the pay scale, but their difference is they're going to be trained, so they are called tri-responders, which means they're going to be linked to fire and local authority, and they're looking at getting them some additional powers that the local authority have as well.
You mentioned outcome 8.
Outcome 8 is like a community resolution, so it's already done quite a lot in Durham Constabulary already, and that could be offering the offender, if you could write a letter of apology. It's some kind of restorative work.
Right, brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm assuming, I could be wrong here, I'm assuming that this has been trialled in 2 or more constabulary areas already, to give like an evidence base for why we would be going into this. And I'd be interested to know, because it would be wrong for me to ask for sort of outcome evidence at this short period. But obviously, this is all about reducing crime and improving people's feeling of safety and their community being a good place to live. So where has this been trialled in the past, and what was their evidence base for rolling it out?
So this is the first pilot, and there's us, we've got Northumbria next to us in Cleveland, and I think there's one other area that's doing both immediate justice and hotspots piloting, but I'm in lots of contact with Cleveland. I'm at a meeting on Monday in Cleveland to see how theirs is working and steal a little bit of best practice, but this is the first pilot.
Right, okay, brilliant. Thank you, Lucy. And this one's probably more of a broader question. All the evidence I've seen is that the decision to engage or not in ASB or any criminal activity is most strongly correlated to the fear of detection, the fear of being caught, rather than the sentence, fine, or anything else that may come from being caught. You know, people make rash decisions and stupid decisions, but there's a rationale behind whether or not you do commit a crime. And I was interested that this was introduced by Nigel as punishment, and I was just wondering how much of this is also linked to sort of finding out the causes and diversion, and helping people realise that their thought process or decision making process are landing them in trouble, and that idea of getting them to change their ways rather than being a punishment incentive for the
it's not at the minute. At the minute, this pilot is heavily focused on the numbers and the punishment. What they have said is 30% of the hours that they spend can be education, and I've pushed back on that because every partner's come to us and said what they concentrate first on is them interventions, that behaviour change and addressing the needs, and we need to increase that figure. But at the minute, it is just 30%. So this pilot is about the visible punishment, and it goes against everything we've ever learned about that, getting that behaviour change in. But this is where we are at the minute. But the probation service delivering it, our youth offender service, they have both said that they will concentrate on them needs before the immediate justice side. So it's happening, but that's not what the Home Office are wanting.
Yeah, well, I'm really happy to hear that, Lucy, because I must admit, initially I was very concerned that, and I can understand that this has come down from government, and there may well be a decision the government want to emphasise punishment, but you know, as far as spending money and time of officers wisely, we know the best way to do this is through getting behaviour change. So, you know, please, Lucy, I support you and the other agencies who are pushing back on that one, because we want the best result for everybody in our communities. So, very reassured to hear that. But let's keep pushing back against this one-dimensional idea.
Happening. But the Home Office don't want to see it on their returns, but they get it. They get the document they send me that's got all the numbers on, but I also do a narrative with the stories and the good news and the good work that we're doing behind all of these figures. So whether they read it or not, but I do make them, I send it over to them so they get it alongside the numbers.
Well, you've got my support, Lucy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I think I can come to you now, Councillor Allen. You are now number 2.
I know I took myself off inadvertently. Thank you for that. It's just more of a comment really. In around our area, we have a lot of wayward youths who are allowed to be out and about at night, all wear dark clothing. Some of them now have taken to wearing hats and masks that come, you know, so they've only got their eyes showing. But how can our very, very few beat officers, be they PCSOs or, you know, have full police powers, how can they tackle when you can't even see these kids? And yet they're a nuisance. They're like a hit and run squad. They're an absolute pain in the bum for everybody. Thank you.
Can I just ask which area that is, Councillor Allen?
I'm in North Road Ward, so we're looking at in between. We're like the second ward down, as it were, from we've got Harrogate Hill above, and then there's North Road Ward. We've also got a very big local park, and a lot of the residents, they won't now go out anywhere near dusk because of the antisocial behaviour, etc. And we're told that when people go into the park the next morning, the kids have piled all their vapes in a nice, neat little pile. So they haven't put them in the bin, which is good. They're aware of that. But it just shows you how prevalent it is. But it's the riding round on the bikes, because they ride on the pavements. The e-scooters are on the pavements. The electric bikes are on the flipping pavements. And Darlington seems to have a policy at the moment, especially around High Road, of it being pedestrian, but people are allowed to ride their bikes on there. But there's no incentive for them to ride safely, and they're just doing what they want, and they're a hazard to elderly people, they're a hazard to people like me with my guide dog puppy, so they're a hazard to other people with their dogs, and we don't seem to be willing to try and get to grips with. I consider that antisocial behaviour. To me, if pedestrians can walk along High Row, so can people on bikes. They don't need to ride their bikes, but I don't know how we get round that either. But at the moment, I would consider that antisocial, and so would a lot of residents who step outside the shops and nearly get mown down and that kind of thing. So again, it's going to boil down to numbers of police officers on the streets, isn't it? And obviously our CCTV looking, being monitored with somebody looking at the right screen at the right time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll come back on. I'll come back on that point, Councillor Allen. Now I did, because for some reason my screen is not showing everybody, but I did see somebody with the hand up. I think it was Councillor Harker or Holroyd.
Both, just to confuse you, Nigel, but Councillor Harker was first.
All right, Councillor Harker.
Thank you, Lucy and Nigel. It's just a comment on the scheme that you've been talking about, Lucy. Neil referred to the Fens of the Deans. One of the roles that I have as chair of the Fens of the Deans, and indeed we have been hosting, if that's the right word, people from the probation service for a number of years. It's been a useful relationship. It's been difficult at times to sort out for a couple of reasons that I'll indicate, but we have provided through the Fens useful things for people on probation to do. The difficulty that arises is so it's a park and it involves horticulture at a very simple level, but it does require planning. It requires notice about when people are coming. It requires indication of how many people are coming to make sure they have the equipment. It requires somebody who's available who has some knowledge of horticulture. Otherwise, you're just dumping a load of people that really don't know what they're doing. And my concern is if you're trying to do a turnaround within 48 hours, finding something that is meaningful to do in terms of, not for them, but in terms of actually doing something in the community that serves a purpose rather than just random litter picking somewhere, I think may be difficult with that kind of turnaround. Particularly, I'm presuming also it then means there'll be an uncertainty in terms of the number of people that you're bringing. So just a cautionary note in terms of that, it will be quite difficult to do. And the second thing, ironically, one of the huge difficulties we had was about toilet facilities. Some of the individuals, we never know who's there or why they're there or what they've done, but some of the individuals cannot be left alone. And if any one of them requires to go to the toilet, which if they're there all morning, is not an unreasonable thing to do, they have on occasion had to decant everyone that's there, which could be up to 10 people, into the minibus, drive over to South Park to use a public loo that can be supervised, and then drive all the way back again. And before you know where you are, the entire morning's gone and they've not actually done anything. So in the instance of the Fens, we have a portaloo that was installed partly for our volunteers, but partly to enable that service provision to go forward. So again, some thought does need to go into those kinds of facilities to ensure that when they're on site, they are able to do something without needlessly being interrupted. And I'm sure on occasion someone said they need to go to the loo just to get away from what they were doing. But clearly, if the request is made, that has to be acted upon. So again, finding things to do at short notice, if you've also got to think about provision of toilet facilities, is difficult, because from discussions with the probation service, you can't just take them to any public lavatory for obvious reasons. So again, I think just something cautionary to think about if you're genuinely trying to turn around this in 48 hours. And I get the reason why in terms of immediate impact, but it isn't without organisational problems.
Yeah, immediate justice is slightly different to the probation, and these people are risk assessed for low level offences. So anybody who was high risk would not be eligible to come onto immediate justice. But if you think you could do with another Portaloo, that could be where we could get some funding, if you think that would help you.
In our instance, I think we're fine. It's more the point if other places are thinking of taking advantage of this, it may be something that needs to be taken into account.
Yeah, and we have pushed back that trying to find something meaningful for both the community and for the offender. If they're going to do something they enjoy, they're going to get more out of it. And we have pushed back that that's difficult to do within that time frame as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for that, Stephen. Oh, I did see Councillor Holroyd, but the hand seems to have gone away now. Is that still there?
It's still there, Nigel.
Right, you are. Sorry about that. Could we make this the last one to Lucy, please?
Yeah, I just wanted to second a comment somebody's made in the chat that it's actually a cycle route through the town centre, and I use it commonly. So I would very much caution any restrictions on that, because it's how I get, through town and out the other side. But obviously people should use it safely at a close to walking speed, but that doesn't mean people can't cycle there. My query was about you showed the list of hotspot locations. There seemed to be only about 10 with the grey highlighting, which I assumed was where the hotspots were, which means that there weren't any in Darlington, or am I misunderstanding that? What do just a query about what the grey highlighting meant.
So the grey as if they've been highlighted by left behind town or community intelligence. So the first 8 are the Darlington hotspot areas, but I'll share this presentation with you so you can have a look at them.
Excellent. Right, I'll have a more detailed look at it like that then. Thank you very much for explaining.
I am conscious that I've ambushed 40 minutes of your meeting, so if anybody wants to catch up with me outside this, please just drop me an email and I'll put another Teams in with you.
Right, well, thank you very much, Lucy. There's 2 points. The first is that the hotspot locations is going on, has been moving quite quickly. The second, as we just discussed, has a number of challenges with it, not least of all with the probation, the turnaround. And I think it's fair to say, Lucy, that that's the subject of some discussion and is a bit more flexible than turning things around in 48 hours.
Yeah, and I'm starting to feel more positive about it now.
And just to say goodbye, Lucy, I would be failing in my duty if I didn't mention that you got your volunteer certificate at the Darlington Stronger Communities last week. And it was great to hear that the cheer that went up when your name was announced. So congratulations for that.
Oh, thanks, Nigel. I'm still very passionate about Darlington, and I'll be in number 40 at the weekend putting the Christmas tree up. Right.
I was there yesterday getting my photo taken.
Thanks, everybody. If anyone's got any more questions, please just let me know and I'll catch up with you separate.
Thanks, Lucy.
Bye.
Right, well, thanks, Lucy.
Bye.
I'm wanting to give an update of some of the key things. There's been quite a lot going on. The first thing, of course, if I can get this in front of the camera, is that the annual report has been published. Copies should have been circulated to you, electronic copies. And if anybody wants a hard copy, if you let the office know, we'll get one out for you. It covers the last year up to April this year, and I'm pleased to say that there are a number of improvements. There's inclusion in the report on the funding that neighbourhood policing teams have been getting to develop problem-solving approaches. There's been some very good work done by neighbourhood police and Darlington, as well as County Durham, about focusing on to targeted areas and providing solutions to problems. We've also identified the funding that's being given to diversionary activities for young people. A point was raised earlier on that about trying to get activities that avoid people committing crime or antisocial behaviour, and there's been some successes in that area, particularly during the summer. We are investing in more CCTV cameras. You are aware that we've given a commitment to Darlington over a 10-year period that continues, and there are indications that where we target CCTV where they can be best used, that we do have an impact on reducing both antisocial behaviour and crime more generally. Operation Snap has been running now. It's up and running. This is where you can have a dash cam on your car and upload any video of dangerous driving. And although I can't tell you how many, I do know that the police have been able to use the evidence in roads policing, and a number of people have been prosecuted as a result. You've always got the possibility that the video is not to the quality that allows evidence, but the indications are that this is actually catching dangerous drivers. And so Joy, I think, sees this as a good step forward. Although this doesn't directly relate to the point that you raised, Councillor Allen, the Operation Endurance has been promoted significantly over this last year, and that's to try and take a zero tolerance to addressing off-road bikes. The problem is there. It's not only Darlington, it's around County Durham as well, but the police are having some successes in the neighbourhood in catching people. And in catching people, I recognise that some of them are wearing balaclavas and might not be recognised by the face, but a lot of intelligence that neighbourhood police pick up can identify quite often who the bikers are. And I was on a presentation. I went round with the police in one of the neighbourhoods, and what they had was, as soon as they find out that a biker is out, they are informed because of local connections, and they just simply go to the person's house and catch them when they come round the corner. It's not always as simple as that, but there are efforts being made. As a result of the work that's being done right across the board with local authorities and Durham Constabulary, antisocial behaviour over the year in question has dropped by 30%. There's been an 8% reduction in the volume of road collisions, and safer roads is one of Joy's priorities, as well as antisocial behaviour, and a similar reduction in the number of people who are killed or seriously injured on the country roads, on the county roads. So there's been a fair effort put in, and there will be more effort put in, because this is one of the things that sits up there as one of the highest of our priorities, and progress is being made. If we move on to some of the other activities, I'll come back to antisocial behaviour. Across Darlington, we've got our figures where there's just nearly 3% increase in reports. This can be seen as a negative thing, but one of the things that we know is quite a few people don't report antisocial behaviour. So it is helpful if we're getting figures that actually reflect reality more clearly. The good news, to say from Joy's point of view, is there's a 21% decrease in antisocial behaviour reports against people. Clearly, there are other areas of antisocial behaviour, but this is a priority to try and stop antisocial behaviour affecting people directly. So that's seen a significant reduction. The second thing, and some of you will be aware, is that we've had some challenges in relation to the times for call handling, and 101 calls particularly have been the subject of some debate in the past. We've now got 8 additional call handlers, and in the new year, another 10 call handlers will be employed. And we have a switchboard mechanism now that is able to divert about 50% of the calls that are not really best handled by either 101 or 999, and this is freeing up capacity as well. As a result, both 999 calls and 101 calls answer times have been improved, and the abandon rates for 101 calls has significantly fallen. This is where people hang on and they just run out of patience and then call off. The number has significantly reduced. On point 3, Lucy's touched on it, but we also got another £1 million to get the 5th round of safer funding. We're particularly pleased that we've now had a round in each of the safer funding amounts. This is to invest in projects between October this year and March 2025. It's building on efforts that we've done before, so that we will increase the areas identified for CCTV cameras. We're looking to increase the number of neighbourhood watch engagement officers, get some defensive barriers to be targeted where it can be used to prevent off-road biking, and also, as we've done in other towns, is to increase the home security upgrades to try and help prevent things like burglary. From our point of view, this is good news. It means that we can keep pursuing and keep building on the efforts that we're doing in relation to antisocial behaviour, the neighbourhood crime and violence against women. And of course, these are things that rated very highly in Joy's priorities. I already indicated, you already know that over the next 10, well, probably 9 years now, a significant investment in Darlington CCTV camera will be taking place. Number 4, you've probably seen the publicity around shoplifting. There's a very serious concern that this is increasing across the country nationally. Darlington is included. County Durham has been having some problems. Joy has been particularly focusing on this with businesses. A safer business group is being established across Durham and Darlington to try and focus on good practice and how we can tackle particularly repeat offenders who are involved in shoplifting. And of course, you might have some opportunists, you might have some people who are feeling austerity, but I think one of the things that sits very heavily is that organised crime groups are in behind some of this as well. We continue to promote centrices, and Sainsbury's recently came on board across the country as a way of being able to get information loaded up about problems and crimes in supermarkets or retail areas. And one of the things Joy specifically wanted me to point out was that when the Shop Watch was relaunched in Darlington last month, over 80 retailers signed up, and Durham Constabulary with Durham Borough Council are putting efforts in to try and reduce the amount of shoplifting. There has already been a reduction in reported shop thefts in the same area, in the same time period, I should say. And there is going to be an Operation Cargo over the festive period to try and target known shoplifters and try and prevent them, and to try and get them redirected away from shoplifting. And the message is going to be clear that if you make a choice to commit shop theft in Darlington, then it'll be our aim to send you, make it personal, send you to prison over the festive period. It's an aspiration, and I think that people are seriously looking at this simply because of the increase and the volume of crime that's going on in shoplifting. Point 5, we're continuing the efforts with off-road bikes, and to pick up the point that you made, Councillor Allen, the neighbourhood police are focusing on bikes and are trying to increase the intelligence about who it is that's out and about on the bikes. I can't say that we've got this problem solved by all, but Operation Endurance is ongoing, and there are every month there are particular efforts made to try and target the known off-road bikes, be it quad bikes, be it bikes, and in some cases the way that electronic scooters are being used as well. Point 6, in terms of drug and alcohol, you will probably appreciate that Joy is a joint lead for addictions and substance misuse at the Association of Police Commissioners. Part of a thing that she picked up is that the production of naloxone, which if somebody takes a heroin overdose or an opium overdose, can help reduce the potential fatal results of that. Durham Constabulary has taken the lead. More than 200 officers now carry a kit with them so that if they come across somebody who's overdosed, they're able to administer it quickly. A total of 400 members of staff have received the full training to administer this drug. It's been used so far since it came in on 43 occasions, and this year 11 times alone. Now, there's a strong possibility that those people who were treated possibly would have died. So that's helping in the most immediate sense of that. And obviously, there's a whole amount of work going on to try and deal with drug and alcohol addiction. You may have seen in the press, Joy was particularly keen that the use of nitrous oxide or laughing gas by people, particularly when they're driving, which has been a particular concern. Since November, she'd been lobbying the government, and since November, the law has been updated. November, since this month, not into December yet, to make nitrous oxide illegal if it's going to be used to be breathed, because there are still some legitimate uses for nitrous oxide, and those are exempted. But if you're buying nitrous oxide to get a high, that is now illegal. On point 7, and I've got 2 more to go, so this point 7 is that in relation to road safety, we've supported the break week in terms of raising awareness about road safety, and in moving into the festive period, Crime Stoppers will be stepping up a campaign to try and make people think twice before getting behind the wheel in relation to alcohol or drugs. The final specific point I would raise is that our office has received nearly £1 million to over 2 years to help prevent and reduce serious violence. There's a multi-agency project which includes Darlington and Durham is being brought about. It's looking at a number of things that can be used to prevent violence, but particularly I think there's an emphasis in looking at knife crime. There's a project and strategy officer that's been employed, support the work going forward in the next few weeks, and it's hoped to be done reasonably quickly, and I'm sure that Darlington will be involved. Is we're going to draft a serious violence strategy behind which there'll be plans taken on what can be done to prevent violence, and not only in relation to knife crime, but in relation to violence against women and girls as well. There are 2 operations planned to deploy what I've got described as passive drugs dogs into the licensed community, and up to 15 officers will be deployed over consecutive weekends to tackle, educate and enforce the misuse of illegal drugs with the nighttime economy. So in a very kind of quick summary, those are the highlights that Joy wanted to present. There is a lot of information in the annual report. I'm happy to take any questions on that. So I think I've spoken enough. If there's any questions, now then, as I look at my screen, I'll just check that this is correct. Councillor Allen, I've got you number 1. Councillor Layton, I've got you as number 2, and the others have just disappeared off my screen. So I'll take those 2 first. Councillor Allen.
Hi, thank you. That was lovely. That was all really positive. I was really pleased to hear all that. I just have one question. It's concerns the CCTV. I'm really happy and have always wanted more cameras, because I'm one of these, I don't do anything bad, so I don't care if anybody's watching me. But it's all very well having more cameras, but do you also have the funds to pay somebody extra to watch them? Because I've been down in our CCTV room and I don't know how 2 people manage to watch every single camera. I know that they have to do it in sort of sections, but I don't know how 2 people can watch all the cameras in Darlington at any one time. So does your funding allow for an extra officer or 2?
I'll put this over to Nicola. She might have the detail, and then I'll come back to the point more generally.
Okay, thank you.
I'm afraid I don't have any other detail, Councillor Allen, but what we'll certainly do is go back and see if we can find that out for you. You do make a good point. One of the things that I would say is that it's been having CCTV in Darlington, I do know, has been really successful. 3 of the CCTV operators who do watch the system were recently given a commissioner's commendation from Joy for some of the work that they've done apprehending someone who was committing sex offences in town recently. But they've apprehended all kinds of crimes and antisocial behaviour. It has been really successful. You do make a good point, and I'll take that away and see if that's been built into the programme, into Safer Streets 5, or into the funding that Darlington has been, that Joy has invested. She's investing £25,000 a year over the next 10 years, totaling £250,000. So, we'll certainly ask that question and come back to you.
Yeah, it's purely because I'm aware that if there's an ongoing situation and one operator is following a person around, etc., then they can't be looking at any other screens, which means other things are possibly getting missed. The other thing is as well, can you ask her if she can get some more funding so we can have another drone? Our drone is lovely. We went to see a demonstration of it, but we've only got one. Can we have a few more, please?
We can have a look into that, because as Lucy's presentation has shown, and there is other funding, this is an area that particularly interests me. So we can have a look at that and see what the possibilities are.
It saves so many feet on the ground. It was absolutely fascinating to watch.
And they are particularly helpful, aren't they?
They are
in that kind of fight against nuisance motorcycles, off-road bikes.
Exactly,
like that,
because they can go where policemen can't. So it's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, we'll pick that up. Councillor Layton.
Thank you, Nigel. I'm just wondering about the Safer Streets funding, and particularly for providing security for homes. How hard and fast are the parameters, the boundaries? Because I know you'll have a lot in Northgate, and that yet some of the terraces and some of the sort of vulnerable areas stray into different wards. There are houses in North Road, there are houses in particular areas of our ward in Piermont that require just as much support, and there are vulnerable residents in those areas. And also there are areas where the lighting and the sort of just the general nighttime security for people walking alone aren't just bad in, say, Northgate. They're dreadful along Widowfield Road, which actually is the boundary of our ward, where the lighting on the side of the Deans is appalling, and you just wouldn't want to be walking your dog beyond about 3:30, 4 o'clock at night. So just wondered, how rigid are these boundaries, and can councillors from other wards actually request some of this money, or if they highlight residents that are vulnerable, can they put requests in even if they're not in the usual areas that this Safer Streets funding's been provided for?
Yes, if I take that up, the first thing is that, as Lucy indicated, within the hotspot, hard targeting, although that's mainly to do with the police and getting things up, the link with the Safer Streets is that we're happy to take requests At the moment, there will have been people looking at this, but I don't think we've definitively finished where that money's going. It's still being decided. So if you think that there are areas in your wards that could benefit from this, I cannot guarantee that it'll be accepted, but I understand that people are open to having a look at it, because of course what tends to happen is that you need to come down to the criteria of where, if you take burglaries for example, what's been the reports in the last year, or where are the hotspot burglaries. But I think the key point is, if you make the have a look at it. Right, well, I think you've made it to number one, Councillor Snedker.
Thank you very much, Nigel, and thanks for a wide-ranging but I suppose well précise feedback to us. So really appreciate that. First question is about shop theft or theft from shops and your mission to send them to prison. All the evidence I'm seeing, Nigel, and you may be able to correct me here, is that the prisons are full and that courts are being told not to send people to prison for short duration prison sentences. Not only is the prison estate woefully overcrowded and there's no ability to rehabilitate people in prison, but all the evidence is that very short prison sentences have no impact on reoffending rates. So in the light of that, is that pledge to send people to prison for short periods of time one that will actually happen, or is it something that's put out for public consumption? Because I can't see the reasoning behind it quite yet. Maybe you could illustrate that better for me, Nigel.
Essentially, there are two aspects, and that was probably a bit of loose terminology on my part. There are two aspects. The first is, you're quite right. If you've got somebody who is first time or haven't got a record of this, then what I think people will be looking for, and this is what we're looking for in trying to do the work on reducing reoffending and also trying to stop people to offend in the first place. And you're right, the prisons are full, and it's unlikely that's going to happen. But I think the second thing is where you've got people who are repeat offenders, and it's linked to other things, and particularly where there's organised crime involved. What we're finding is that some of the individuals are both stealing a huge amount of materials that's going back to organised crime. And the second thing is violence. There's been instances where there's been some serious violence against the shop workers during the theft process. And I think in those areas, there'll be a much more serious look at the sentences. But you're right, where you're looking at people who have not taken much or low offence in terms of the numbers, it's unlikely that message will have much resonance. But I think what the police are trying to do, and certainly what our office is trying to do, is to get at the most serious of the offenders, because there's an indication that these things are just, well, it's a victimless crime if nobody gets hit. There's some serious stuff going on with organised crime in the background, and that presents a much bigger offending problem. What you see is shoplifting, and it's kind of given the indication that, well, it's not really that bad, it's actually significant. So the point you made is valid, but the point I would make is that there is a real targeting of both the organised crime and the most serious and prolific offenders.
Thanks for that clarification, Nigel. I worked in the retail industry for quite some time, and yeah, absolutely no excuse for violence attacking people who are there doing their job, trying to serve the public, and also the organised crime. There could be people being exploited in that mix as well. So good to hear that finesse. So appreciate that you were trying to be brief, but I appreciate that extra information. The second one was about Operation Snap. Great to see after many years of waiting for it that it's now fully up and running. It's a great resource. We've talked about multiplying the effect of police services, and you can't be everywhere all the time. One feedback, I suppose, one thing that the public expect, like common justice, is that when you witness a crime and you go to the trouble of providing a witness statement and agreeing that you would go to court if necessary, I think the members of the public would like to hear back from the police what the result of those investigations are. So I'm aware that the Operation Snap has a great deal of automation in it. So you get a response within a minute to say that your form has been sent in, and then you get a response within the day, I think, to say your evidence is evidentially sufficient, which is brilliant. But then there's a little footnote that says, unless you are called to court, we will not contact you again. Now, again, I'm aware police resources are limited and constrained. If there was a way of adding a little bit of automation, if the offender accepts words of advice or accepts a course, so they don't go to court, training course, I think the members of the public would like to just have an automated email thanking them again for being upstanding. And it might, because it does take a bit of your time to do this. I've used it on 3 occasions, and I think it might encourage people to keep using Operation Snap. So wouldn't expect an answer from you now, Nigel, but I think if it was possible to do that, then that would make Operation Snap even more effective. So
no, that's helpful, and we'll certainly look at it, because I think that you're right. If you put some footage in and that footage has resulted in some action, whether it's training, whether it's a prosecution, then I think it's one of those things. It would be nice to have that feedback. So we'll look at it and see what's possible.
Brilliant. And I suppose the final point is about nitrous oxide, and I'm quite intrigued by this, because I'll be interested to know the evidence base behind the nitrous oxide decision and the press for this, because I think both the BMJ, British Medical Journal, and the Independent Advisory Council on Misuse of Drugs both very strongly recommended against criminalising people who use nitrous oxide. They said that the results would be negative, and the criminalisation of this group of users would not actually reduce crime. And I'm just wondering if there was any evidence that you could share with us that was just a counter to that, because I respect those two organisations, but it would be useful for me as a member of the public if I'm talking to residents about nitrous oxide, and I'm aware of the dangers it can cause not only to individuals but the public if people drive under the influence, for instance. So it'd be useful for me if I'm talking to the public to see the evidence that counters this really strong body of evidence that it wasn't the right decision. So if there's anything that you could share with us, I'd really appreciate that.
What I'll do is we'll take a note of that and get back to you on it. I think our immediate concerns were, first of all, the health effects. The second thing was particularly driving. We were finding footage of people putting posts up where they're actually using the gas while they're actually driving, and the implications of that are there. And the third area is, for some groups, it's contributing towards antisocial behaviour because they're just in a completely different frame of mind that you would be normally. So those are the 3 concerns. But what I will do is we'll get back and we'll write to you about why we are supporting it when others have said this is not going to have an effect. Okay.
Thank you.
Can I, because I did see a hand, but unfortunately my screen isn't got any hands on it. So is there anybody else still waiting?
Doesn't look like it, Nigel.
Right. Well, thank you very much for your time and bearing with us. As you might have gathered, there are a number of things that's been happening that we are pleased about the sense of direction that we're going. We do recognise that there are still a lot of challenges in front of you, in front of both you and us. But I think that with the extra funding that's come in for antisocial behaviour and some of these initiatives, we feel that over the next year, we might be able to make some good inroads into some of the priority areas. So with that, I would thank you for your time, and you'll be hoping that the next time you will see joy.
You were great,
Thanks
Nigel.
Thanks very much, Nigel. Thanks,
Thanks a
Nicola.
lot.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Thanks very much,
everyone.
Nigel.
Happy
and
Christmas,
everyone. Bye.
Nigel.
Well,
Merry
aye,
Christmas,
happy
everyone.
Christmas.